Shalom, good morning. This is a video response to a video by this very practical thinker. She's tough, and I really like her videos. And she did one called "Who's Raising Your Children?" And I thought, yeah, that's a really good question. I want to see who she thinks is raising kids today, because my immediate response to that title was, wow, daycare, it's horrible. I didn't like it when it came out. And we had a bad experience with daycare. My kids do not go into daycare except for just like going for an hour, like dropping daycare. And my one middle daughter wanted to go to school because when my son went to kindergarten, she was home alone. And so I would put her in dropping daycare on Fort. And she did that about 4 times, and she didn't really have a great time any of those 4 times. But on the last one she went in, she got chicken pox, and she gave it to my son, who then gave it to my husband. And so that was the last time I did drop-in daycare for our kids. I taught daycare right after college. It was for a company that has like a red steeple on their buildings, and I was young and naive, and I didn't know that much about children. The thing they had going on that was good was that it was a very scheduled day. It wasn't just everybody show up and there'd be mayhem. What I hated about it was they had infants. I really disliked seeing the infants there, because in my mind, even though I hadn't had any kids of my own, babies are so vulnerable, and they can't even tell you if something's going wrong with them. And there's just so much chance for neglect or abuse to happen. And the person who was in there with the infants had 2 or 3 little babies, like 6 months and younger, to care for, which is, it's hard enough to care for one. And so it really made me nervous. I just could never imagine doing that with my own child, and I couldn't imagine being a mom of a baby that small and leaving that baby with anybody. So it made me really, really unhappy. And because it was so structured, there wasn't a whole lot of nurturing going on. And because I was inexperienced, and I'm the kind of person who I learn by doing things, and I learn by doing things sometimes incorrectly and then correctly, I didn't really understand how to interact with those kids, but I did know how to teach. You know, that was one of those things that was just kind of naturally in me. And so I had a co-leader, and she was about my age, and she was very nurturing. And so we kind of made an okay team there, and we got to know our kids, and we tried to do the program. But in general, the children there did not like going there. And I thought, that's kind of strange, because I remember in kindergarten I enjoyed going, sort of. And in later years I enjoyed going to school, but man, some of these kids, and now I know why. And I've been waiting because, you know, I have a life, but I've been studying. And Karen Strawn, she's I believe she's a Canadian person who does a lot of social commentary, and she's a men's rights activist. Did a video on the shooter in Norway, and in it she talked about, because she does a lot of research too, reading that the early years from like 0 to 3 in a child's life are very formative. We know that, but they need, in order to develop normally, a very safe, secure place in their life where they can go when things are bad and get comforted and know that they are safe there and they're going to be taken care of there. Well, when you take your infant and put it in daycare, you're not giving your infant that. And I see a direct link to how many people put their kids in daycare, because it's a bunch, and how many kids have autism. The rate went up. And autism is, yeah, and I know it's linked to vaccinations, and now they're saying for sure it's linked to vaccinations. But what makes more common sense? If a child is emotionally withdrawn and not developing normally, do you think that's medicine, or do you think that's because they got no nurturing when they were little? If you send them off to an institutionalized place like where I used to work, you are not showing them a safe place, a nurturing place. Now, those two ladies I talked about were nurturing individuals, but that doesn't guarantee their whole experience in that place is going to be nurturing. They're with a bunch of other kids who don't want to be there too. And some of the adults didn't want to be there. And so their everyday experience will not be loving and nurturing. Their everyday experience is going to be in a strange place with strange people. And, you know, probably at least half the little kids there don't care about them. You're not their sibling. And so there's probably a lot of bullying that goes on and stuff. And I think daycare caused the rise in, and that was just one kind of daycare. There's lots of private daycare, and some of those people can be nurturing, I'm sure. But not all of them will be. There'll be plenty of kids going into daycare where they're not taken care of, and the very few minority will go into daycare and be abused or even killed. Same thing with nannies and babysitters. Yes, there's lots of nannies that do a good job for their kids, provide stability, and there's that very little few who don't, who abuse the children in their care. And so that's immediately what I thought when she said, when Kim at This Old Homestead said, "Who's raising your children?" But she was, see, that shows my generation, because by now daycare is just a thing, and you know, no one thinks about it in that context. They're just like, oh yeah, well, if I want to work, I'll put my kid in daycare, or I'll give him a babysitter or whatever. And I'll make sure to make enough money to cover the cost of that and the travel and everything else. It's all about me. I want that job. You know, I want to find out if I can be the head of my corporation, or, you know, whatever. You know, I'm not completely against women achieving things. I'm just against women abandoning what their God-given place in life is. Anyway, Kim had a totally different point. She was talking about these devices. She was talking about parents who, again, are emotionally not there for their children because the parents are on their iPad or their phone or playing their Xbox or whatever. And she talked about herself. She talked about when she and her husband had cable TV, and they had a TV in every room. We never did that. Pastor Joe and I had one TV for the family, and the children could watch it when we allowed them to, but they were not allowed to have unlimited access to it at all times. Oh, something's going on outside. Hang on a second. It was fine. It was me. She heard me from outside. Anyway, yeah, she was talking about how she walked by her children's room one day, and they were, you know, mouth agape staring at some TV show. And that was it. Like, she turned in all her cable stuff and took care of that matter in her own home the next day. And I have seen that sort of phenomenon also. When we're uploading videos, we're in a public place, and we often see people in there. And there's nothing, I mean, we're in there too, but the difference is we do not have small children. We have seen people in there with their small children on a school night till 10, 11, 12. Where the parents are looking at their phone or on their computer, and the kids are in that playground, or running around the restaurant screaming and yelling, getting into fights. And I have seen more than one little kid come out of that playground crying, you know, some of them hysterically. One little kid said that he had been playing really hard and he forgot to go to the bathroom, and he had gone to the bathroom on himself. And his mom was this very attractive, younger, you know, probably in her 30s lady, and she had been on her phone and just completely ignoring them. So he came in there crying, and she, you know, another one, the little kid had been in the bathroom screaming for his mom, and she'd been on her phone. And so a McDonald's worker had gone in there to go to the bathroom, saw the little kid, came out, got the mom, and put her back in there. It's like, these machines, these electronic machines, she makes an excellent point, they're a distraction when you're a parent. Your attention when you're a parent should be directly on your kids. They require that because they don't have enough wisdom and knowledge to navigate the world, and they need to have some oversight on them. Yeah, so I thought that was an excellent video, and I think the other thing I love about her is when she makes a point, she just comes straight out to it. You know, when she talks about, you know, parents being on one of these deals and ignoring their kids, she just says, that's bad. She's right. I mean, there's no reason not to make the points that she does, and that's what I really like about her. So, my hat's off to you. You did a great job. There's a lot of wisdom in that video. I highly recommend you go and see it. I'll put a link to it down in the description. You know, on my videos, I don't often do links. I figure y'all can look it up. I've said her name twice, but I get that it's easier to just click on the link, so I'll do that. And I hope you all take this into your own mind and heart. Even when your grandchildren are over and you're babysitting, don't ignore them. You don't want to be ignored. I mean, just look at it as if you were the other side. You don't want to be ignored. You want to be taken care of, and you want to be nurtured. So here you go. Here's a hug. Nurture, nurture. You're wonderful. All right. Bless you. Shalom.